Hi, welcome to part 2 of a series that I'm doing on a very critically important topic that needs to be much more widely known. This is all about vanishing twin syndrome, also sometimes referred to as womb twin survivor syndrome. I am myself a survivor of vanishing twin syndrome. I didn't know this for a very long time in my life, and so, like so many of us, I went about my life often having some very strange feelings of loneliness, of something or someone being missing from my life, not knowing who, not knowing what it was all about. And since I found out, I have a very different view, not only of myself, but of other people, so many of whom were clients of mine way back in the 80s in New York City when I started to be a life coach and love mentor. And I also am an intuitive. And I may have at least part of that ability and the development of it to owe to the fact that I am a survivor of vanishing twin syndrome. Today, we're going to be focusing on the relationship difficulties that many womb twin survivors experience in terms of being able to deal with loss, being able to deal with change in a relationship through marriage, through separation, divorce, through death. It's powerful stuff, very powerful stuff, because very often womb twin survivors will have many codependent aspects to their personality. Now, I'm not going to tell you that this isn't often created to some extent by their family of origin, the nuclear family, various addictions they may have grown up around, ACOA, which is adult child of alcoholism, and other addictions. That's all relevant. And this added on to it is even more powerful. Just to recap, for those of you who might not have seen part 1 and don't know what in the world I'm referring to, vanishing twin syndrome refers to when there is a multiple pregnancy conceived and only one of the babies survives. And very often, before the 80s or so, when they didn't have the popularization of sonograms and ultrasounds, doctors did not know that there were more than one embryo and fetus developing in that mother's womb. Very often, without going into too much detail at this time, the material of that child, the physical material, has become reabsorbed in the womb, in the placenta of the surviving child. So, very often, the doctors didn't even know when they delivered the baby, the obstetricians, and very often, even if they did notice something, they didn't mention it because they didn't want to call attention to a loss. They wanted to let the parents perhaps focus in on the joy of their new baby rather than the baby that was also in the womb and was lost. So, this is a very powerful pull that can happen all through one's life, not knowing why, until they become aware, if they have the great good fortune, and believe me, I've certainly seen it as an incredible blessing in my life. To realize this explains so much. You don't want to just be a good partner to your friend, to your business partner, to your mate. You want to be the best in the world. You want to be perfect. And you'll do just about anything because the underlying unconscious fear is if you fail, if you let them down, if you are too self-absorbed or selfish, or you make too many choices that aren't good, they'll die. We're talking here about a primal wound. We're talking about a soul imprint. We're talking about cellular memory here. It doesn't get much more significant in life than that. So until you become aware of it, which I hope that this video will help you to do, doesn't it put a new light on your relationships, on your deep desire to always do your very best. And it filters over very often into an overdeveloped sense of responsibility so that you're always afraid, or you've always been afraid, of letting other people down. And always been very willing to put everybody else's needs first, ahead of you. Because there's also a fear that if you don't do that, you'll be abandoned, you'll be rejected, there'll be a death. It may be the death of the present relationship you're in, or a physical death of the person who you feel you might let down. This is complicated. I know it may even be hard to follow. And if you're suddenly starting to have the light come on that this may actually pertain to you or someone you're close to in your family, friends, co-workers, maybe even your own partner, maybe one of your children, be patient with yourself, please. This is tough stuff, and yet it's a key to the door of liberation. Because only, as I said in part 1, when we have the complete awareness of what we're dealing with, can we really create transformation. And please understand that it's just a question of balancing your perspective on things. Reminding yourself, if you start that rescue reflex going, that codependent hanging on kind of quality because you think you have to save somebody, you have to point out to them all the things that you feel they're not doing right because there's an underlying concern that they may not survive. Do you see the pattern that develops? Do you see the challenge? And do you also see that once you have an insight into this and an understanding, you can change it all? You can say to yourself, if those tendencies start to surface, that doesn't pertain to me anymore. And there are numerous other ways that you can heal this. In subsequent parts of this series, I will be sharing more about this very significant topic, and I hope you will join me. Until then, please be good to yourself. Please remember, everything is healable, everything is dealable. Just celebrate yourself. It was never your fault if your sibling died. You had nothing to do with it. It was all exactly what it needed to be. And now that you know, everything can be changed for the better. So, namaste. I bow to the light of your baby self, your toddler self, your teenage self, your adult self. I bow to the light that you are.